You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a life coach, Nancy can teach you how to stay strong under pressure and work through challenges you face. Being legally blind, Nancy inspires others to be resilient in overcoming obstacles and live full out. You can ask Nancy for advice in your life on relationships, finance, business, health, and more. Just call in at 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. Now, here's Nancy.
Hello, my name is Nancy Solari, and this is the Living Full Out Show. Today, we're going to be talking about when we're hesitant in life. Something may happen that makes us a little weary, a little hesitant to take that next step, to risk it again, to put our heart on the table. So when you're feeling hesitant, like you're just not sure how it's all going to work out, that means you're restricting yourself from really living full out. And so we want to recognize where you might be hesitant in your life so that we can self-correct and get you back on track where you are fearless, you are courageous, you are going after life in a big way. Also, in our next segment, we're going to have our inspirational guest, Crystal Woodman Miller. Now, she was a student at the Columbine shooting that occurred back in 1999. And I wish there were no more shootings going on, but there are. And so she's going to share with us her story and kind of where she is today, how she survived that physically and emotionally. Most of all, I want you to feel free to call in. Our number is 800-333-0001. We want to make sure that each week you're supported and given the motivational tools that you need to go after your dreams, your goals, and not feel limited. Also, if you do need resources on today's topic, so you are no longer hesitant in your life, reach out to us at connect@livingfullout.com. Again, that's connect@livingfullout.com. And we'll make sure that, we give you the tips, suggestions so that you're not alone, so that you're able to confidently take that next step. And lastly, if you have an inspirational story that you'd like to share with our community, we'd love to hear from you. This entire show has been built because we want to give you a voice. We want to be inspired and learn from you and all that you've overcome. So feel free to reach out to us again at connect@livingfullout.com. Now, when we talk about hesitation, that's going to come in various degrees, right? There's different shades to feeling hesitant. Sometimes we're literally paralyzed by an intense fear, and therefore we're hesitant to do anything. And we've had clients and even guests on our show that stay indoors due to something that's happened in their lives, and they never go outside. They never want to put themselves out there. Then other times we're hesitant because we might get that kind of creepy hair on the back of our neck feeling, just a little bit concerned or not so sure about something. And either way, whether it's an intense fear or hesitation that's just kind of due to because you're weary, you will know that you're not living your best self. You're not letting yourself be free. And that can be very frustrating. That can be lonely. And so we want to get you out of that place into a place where you are able to thrive. And I've been right there with you. I mean, being legally blind has really been an interesting experience because a lot of times I can't see things around me. So when I walk out there, I'm really hoping that I'm not going to run into a pole or a stop sign, or even the littlest of cracks can take me out and then I'll fall. As good as my cane is, it can't always prevent me from falling, or my service dog, it's not like he can catch me. But it's not like I stay indoors either. I know that I have to put myself out there. I may be a little bit hesitant to go do something, but every time I put myself out there, once I've conquered it, once I've done it, I'm always like, whoo, that was great. That was fun. Let's do it again. And so I want you all to have that feeling so that you're not holding yourself back. And most of all, if you see others in your life who are hesitant, who are not playing big, who are settling, you be a good friend and you want to coach them, or I wouldn't say call them out because you don't know where they are emotionally, be sensitive to that, but you want to encourage them to get out of a place of being still and hesitant and worried and into a place where they can also take action in their life. So over the course of this hour, again, we'd love to hear from you and how we can give you the suggestions you need to no longer be hesitant in your life. Now, I'm getting word from our producer that we do have a caller that we'd like to go say hi to and check in with them. Hi, welcome to the Living Full Out Show. Hi, thank you for calling.
How are you?
I'm great. How can we help you today?
Okay, my daughter is graduating high school this year, and so she's being asked the question a lot, what are you going to do after high school? And she's just really not sure what she wants to do. And when I try to discuss her plans with her, she just kind of like freaks out and starts yelling and using excuses like, college is going to cost too much, and I'm not smart enough, and it's going to be too hard. And then she just runs to her bedroom and just shuts herself off. So she just seems very unsure of herself, and I'm just really just seeking advice on how I can communicate with her better on this and help her figure out what she wants to do.
Well, it sounds like, first of all, that you and your daughter have a really good relationship. Is that right? You guys are close?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And congratulations for you, because you've really built a solid, comfortable, safe foundation. And I can see why she wouldn't want to leave. It's scary, right? I mean,
Right.
Even if you go to a local school or you go to a school far away, there's so many unknowns. Will people like me? Will I fail? What am I even going to do? I'm with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a couple thoughts I have for you. Number one, and I don't know if this is relatable or not, but if you in your conversations can go back to times in your life when you were at that same crossroad. I don't know where you went to school or what you got your degree in, but I'm sure even you encountered that moment of, I don't know what I want to do. And so you might kind of have camaraderie in that moment and how you got to a place of clarity. Also, remind her that sometimes there's freedoms in not knowing what you want to do, but having the ability to choose. Because we do have people that call into our show whose parents or other relatives tell them, oh, you should do this. And then they get a degree in it, and then they realize they don't like it. And so you're not forcing her to do anything. There's so much ability and freedom she has to choose. And choosing is a wonderful thing. Also, letting her know that she doesn't really have to choose a direction right away, right? A lot of times when you're in school, that first 1 or 2 years are like general credits. So she doesn't have to choose. Just take general classes, kind of takes the weight off her shoulders there. And then a couple other suggestions. If you were to search online career tests, career quizzes, there are actually career sites that you can go to. It's kind of like online dating, if you fill out like a personality test, and it allows her to answer questions related to her desires, her passions, her interests, her skills. And then at the end, they will pop out different professions that might be good for her. And that might give her direction. On top of that, once she figures that out, she could always just call up someone in her local community, shadow them. There's so many things that she could do. But most of all, you being a great mom and listening to her, that's worth a lot of weight right there. So you're doing it. But if you could take those other suggestions and apply those, I think she'll figure it out. Because if she's anything like you, she'll be great. No doubt. Okay?
Awesome.
So hopefully those suggestions are good, and go ahead and try those out and let us know how it goes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you got it. Thank you. Now I'm getting word from producer that we have another caller. We'll say hello to them. Hello, welcome to the Living Full Out Show.
Hi.
Hi, so what's going on? How can we help you?
So I'm in this weird funk right now where I'm not motivated to do anything. All I want to do is curl up in a ball, and I was wondering if I could have some help with that.
You know what? I wanted to take your call, even though we only have a short time, because so many of us feel like you have felt. And I really, honestly, I want you to think of something. When you curl into a ball, first of all, you're not playing big, right? You're kind of playing small. And you're kind of like a little secret agent, right? No one can see you when you're in a ball. But I always want you to remember the good friend that you are, the adored child that you are to your parents, the people who haven't even met you yet. If you settle for being curled up in a ball, all those people get to miss out on you. Do you see that?
Yeah.
You bring so much joy to others that when you curl up in a ball, you're not being your highest and best self. Also, I'm sure there's a big impact that you can make in the world. And again, if you're in a ball, you can't make that impact. Just take every day, day by day. But most of all, just curl out of that ball because you're so much better than that. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for calling in. And I want to appreciate everybody who's taking time to call in today. We're all about trying to get out of the place of hesitation and into a place of action. And that's not always easy. That's why we're here throughout the whole show to give you that motivation. We'll be coming right back with our inspirational guest, Crystal Woodman Miller. Again, how did she survive that Columbine shooting? How is she today with all that pain that she went through? You don't want to miss it. I'm Nancy Solari. This is the Living Full Out Show. We'll be back.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. With Nancy's expertise, you'll learn how to embrace your potential and strive for success. If you have a question or need further support, send us an email at connect@livingfullout.com. Now, here's Nancy.
Welcome back to the Living Full Out Show. I am Nancy Solari, and today we're talking about hesitation. When we just feel as though we're not so sure about taking that next step, or even a fear maybe haunting us and telling us don't do something, or you're not good enough, or just all that internal dialogue that can happen. Well, I want you to know that you don't have to be limited by hesitation. You do have the ability to control your negative thoughts and step into a place where you're more empowered. It's not going to happen in a snap. I know sometimes we all get in these funks. We get in times when we might be depressed or even just kind of beat down by a mistake or failing or anything like that. But you do have the ability to pull yourself out of it. And even if it isn't as serious as that, if you're just unsure about your direction in life, you're hesitant because you won't want to make a wrong decision, well, I get that as well. And for me, I know whenever I've been confronted with needing to be more fearless, more courageous, I always have a physical connection with myself as well as a mental one. Like sometimes I'll grab my hands or I'll clench my fists and I can feel like the sweaty palms. Or sometimes I'll just kind of cross my arms and then set them free. And the reason why I share those with you is because in life, you want to feel sweaty palms. You want to feel butterflies, your stomach flipping. Those are moments that you are living. You want to know that the blood is running through your body. You want to not feel headaches or anything like that, so not negative pains, but you want to feel those moments that you are alive. It is so important because then you are living full out. Then you can execute a decision. But without tapping into those feelings, knowing that you're present with yourself, it's really hard to step out of feeling hesitant into feeling confident because you're kind of just blah. You're not really allowing yourself to take action. So I want you to consider that over the course of the hour, where you are in that spectrum so that we can, again, give you that motivation to take that next step. Now, I did promise you that we do have our inspirational guest today, Crystal Woodman Miller, and she was a survivor of the Columbine shootings back in 1999. And for anybody who was around during that time, we were pretty much all glued to our TVs, watching the shooting unfold. It was just in awe of what had happened. So she's going to share her story with us today. And I wish that there were no more shootings, but in that recent shootings have occurred, it's not about sensationalizing them, but never forgetting those who have passed, but also those that are still living with the memories. So I'd very much like to welcome Crystal to the show.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Now, Chris, I want to take our audience back. I know back on that day, April 20th, 1999, which I'm sure you'll never forget it, you were 16 years old. You were kind of in a rush to go study for a test that you had forgotten about. And you and your friend Seth and his sister all decided to spend lunch at the library. And that seemed like a common thing for many students to do. But that was everything but common that day. When you and Seth were sitting at the table, what was your first inkling that something was wrong?
You know, Nancy, the first inkling that something was taking place within our school was, I remember glancing into the hall of our school and I saw students running and they looked panicked and afraid. It looked as though they were running from something. but we couldn't tell what that was. And we, at that point, didn't hear any sounds. So we couldn't hear what they were running from either.
And so when you started to really figure out, wow, this is serious, it wasn't the teacher running in saying, there's men with guns. That didn't even faze you. It was finally when the sound started getting closer and closer. And I think only someone who has lived that can tell us about that sound. What was that moment like when you knew, oh my gosh, something's really going down?
You know, just down the hall, Seth, Sarah, and myself, we all heard the popping noises and the explosions. And as you mentioned, they were coming closer and they were growing louder. And initially, my friend Seth was just trying to assure us, hey, it's just paintball guns, it's firecrackers, it's kids messing around, nothing to worry about. And because we had never heard anything like that, we believed him. We had no other reason. We had no reason not to believe him. And so as that sound approached, there was a turn in all of us. And I don't know if it was just proximity, but we all looked at each other with knowing eyes. And we knew at that point, okay, they're coming in here and this is something serious. And it was so loud and it was so jarring. It literally felt like every time a shot went off or every time they would light one of their little bombs, it would tear through your whole body with just fear. I mean, just every fiber of my body felt the fear, and it started to shake, and I started to get really panicked and afraid, and I think there was just something in us that knew that we needed to take cover and that we had to protect ourselves. And though at that point it was too late to run out of the school or to find even a place to hide, so all we could do was get underneath of our tables for protection.
And when you did get under your table, smart call, right? Everyone else did as well.
Sure.
The two boys did come in with their guns. And what did they say to you all?
Immediately they started shouting out, everybody stand up, get out from underneath of your tables. We're about to blow this library up. And, as they went around, they continued to talk and dialogue both with each other, but also with their victims and with those of us who were in the library. There was a lot of interaction, which I don't know how common that is among all of these shootings, because it seems as though there's very little of that in these other incidences. But for some reason, the boys were conversing. It was almost like every time they would shoot somebody, they would hoop and holler, and it was so cavalier, almost like they just scored a basket at a basketball game. It just felt so surreal. It felt like I was watching a movie, but this was so much more real than a movie. This was not Hollywood. This was my life. And I was 16 years old, and I knew it was about to end.
That is so scary. And I can picture them going around, but it was interesting because you heard firsthand what they were saying. And the interesting thing is there's one guy, John, that they looked under the table and they said, get out of here. They let him go. So it's interesting that these shooters were picking victims, but setting some free.
That is. It's a really, I think for the most part, everybody was a victim, but just catty corner to us, as you mentioned, there was a guy named John, and when they looked under the table and they asked him his name, they said, John, it's John. And they said, hey, you've never done anything to us. And they let him get up and run out at that point.
And at that point, I would think if you're you're like, I want to run out. Oh, gosh, Crystal,
Exactly.
There's so much more to your story. So we have to go to a commercial break. But everybody, it's intense, but it's also so inspiring. So stay with us, Crystal. We want to definitely share more of that. And as you listen to Crystal's story, she was hesitant. She was worried. She was thinking she was going to die. Thankfully, she's here with us today, so she did not. But I want you to always remember where in your life you're hesitant right now so that you can get the motivation from today's show to not feel limited, not feel stressed or burdened. So we're going to be coming right back after this break. I am Nancy Solari. This is the Living Full Out Show. Stay with us and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Living Full Out with Nancy Solari. As a life coach, Nancy can teach you how to stay strong under pressure and work through challenges you face. Being legally blind, Nancy inspires others to be resilient in overcoming obstacles and live full out. You can ask Nancy for advice in your life on relationships, finance, business, health, and more. Just call in at 800-333-0001. Once again, that's 800-333-0001. Now, here's Nancy.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Nancy Solari, and this is the Living Full Out Show. And today we're talking about when we're hesitant in life, when we're not sure, we're weary, we don't want to make a mistake, we're just not sure of which way to go, what move to make. And sometimes that can be due to our own insecurities. Sometimes it's a life event. And our inspirational guest today, Crystal Woodman Miller, was a student at Columbine, and she experienced the shootings that occurred back in 1999. And she's sharing with us her story of courage today, but more so, we're remembering those who have passed and those who have survived in sharing her story with all of you. So I'd like to welcome Crystal back to the show.
Thank you, Nancy.
Now, here we are in your story. You're at the library. All of this is going down. They're shooting people at various tables all around you. And there you and Seth are, your friend, cuddled together. But it was interesting because your table was spared because that's where they stored their arsenal. Can you tell us how scary that was to know that they were literally right by you the whole time?
You know, it was actually, they had their guns, their weapons, everything with them. But once they got to our table, they kind of pulled everything out of their pockets. They were putting everything, onto our table to assess what was left. Because at that point, they had already killed everybody in the library that they would kill during the entire attack. So they were really just trying to figure out how much ammo they had left because they had put that in another place in the school. And so as they were kind of moving their things around on our tabletop and just trying to assess that, it was incredibly scary because Seth just remembered that their boots were inches from my body. And at one point, one of them even unsheathed a knife and mentioned, I've always wanted to stab someone to death. So now at this point, I was just literally waiting for a new variation of my death. No longer would I be killed by gunfire, but rather by being stabbed to death. And that was, it was, all of it was so frightening. And I just kept believing I was going to wake up from this nightmare. But the fact that they were so close and stood there for so long, it just felt so surreal.
And I know that they eventually did leave the library to go get those extra guns and ammo. But how long was that entire time that they were in the library shooting people?
Nancy, it was only 7.5 minutes. And I know that doesn't seem like a whole lot of time, but to me, it felt like an eternity. Those 7.5 minutes literally felt like time stood still. And I even recounted later on my police report that I had to fill out that I remembered being in there 2.5, 3 hours because it just felt like such a long time. But it was only 7.5 minutes, which is really still hard for me to believe at times.
Yeah, think of all the things we can do in 7.5 minutes, and there you were under all this stress. Now, eventually, the students, the boys, did leave to go get their other guns, and you all took that time to escape. Sadly, as you were leaving the library, you had to step over bodies and really find your way out. And I know Seth, your friend, was a beacon of light for you to get out. And when you did, where did you go? When you exited that library, what was that safe harbor for you, if there even was one?
Yeah, even though the library was on the second floor of the school, thankfully there was kind of a hill or a berm that came up near the school, and there was an exit that exited outside, so we didn't have to go back into the halls of the school, and confront the two killers, but rather we were able to run out of the school, and just a few yards away from the library, there was a police car that was parked on the grass that kind of was facing the library. And we ran to get behind the car, and there was no police officer in sight. It was just several of us students, most of whom had just come from the school, and many of whom had been wounded. So the scene on the grass was just, there was blood and people were in pain and people were trying to help people with their wounds. And at that point, I grew incredibly panicked. I think maybe for a second I started to realize that this was real, that this was happening, and I grew hysterical. I started crying. My body was just kind of shutting down on itself until the police began coming and taking, police cars began coming out of nowhere and taking the most wounded away. And I was separated from Seth and Sarah at that point, and I was just kind of dropped off in a field, still very close to the school, but just behind the school. Everybody scattered in every direction, and I just stood there. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know where I was safe. I no longer felt safe. Everything that I had known for 16 years of my life, safety, security, innocence, had suddenly been stripped away from me in the blink of an eye. And I literally didn't know where to go until I started to kind of reunite with some people, and we were able to make it to phones to call our parents at that point.
Well, and it's so interesting, Crystal, because I looked you up online and I heard a Dan Rather report where you were 16, and you were so young and so tired and so exhausted, and just trying to courageously share your bird's eye view of what happened. And tragically, I know that you were quite stressed out by the media. I know that it was kind of I'm not going to say a love-hate, but you definitely almost felt used a little bit during that time.
I did. I really did. I was a young girl. My parents and I didn't really know how to handle the media. They don't send liaisons to help you, handle the influx of requests that you get. And I remember even the first morning right after the shootings, I showed up at Clement Park, which is right near Columbine High School, where kind of the makeshift memorial began and where all of the media camped out. And on that day, I went and I started at 4 a.m. and I went from media outlet to media outlet to media outlet all day long. And I was exhausted. I felt as though my words were being used to somehow fit an agenda of any given news network. It just felt like they were just in it to get my story. And then I felt like these people really care. They care. They want to hear my story. And then all of a sudden they packed up and they left town. And then they came back again at the 1 year mark and at all of these different, milestones as we were finishing high school. And it just felt like a very difficult thing. Yet I was very grateful for the platform to share my story, because I believe by sharing my story it was very cathartic, and also people saw that I was willing to talk. I was willing to speak. And the reason I was willing to speak is because I had such an urgency to make sure that this never happened again. And unfortunately, we have seen far too many of these things. I believe they never should have happened one moment after Columbine, and yet here we are 19 years later. But I am thankful for the media in that way as well, that we were able to share, and I continue to share a message of hope.
Well, absolutely. And we're so glad that you are stepping up and really brave to talk about it just moments after it happened up until today. Now, I'm sure there's a level of self-care that you had to do, and maybe therapy and all of that, but how did you struggle with survivor's guilt? Some of these people that you knew had passed, and there you were and you survived. How do you grapple with that?
Yeah, I really, survivor's guilt for me was very severe. I felt just, of course, initially numb and in shock, but even once that began to wear off, I knew people who passed, and one of my friends that I knew from youth group, from a church growing up, she was killed that day, and I not only missed her, and not only we were both in the library. I did not know she was in there. We all would have been sitting together, but when we walked in, she had already been sitting, and we sat in a different place. And so I was just guilty about that, that she was alone and that she died in the same room, and yet I walked out of there alive. And I felt guilty to smile or to laugh. In fact, I remember the first day that I ever did that, and I felt so guilty. And by doing so, I believed that I was dishonoring my friend's life and all of those lives who had been taken that day. And I remember going to my friend's parents, and I was explaining that to them. Man, I'm so sorry I'm alive. She's not. And I wish she was here. And they said, Crystal, we want you to live your life. We want you to live your life. And by doing so, that will honor our daughter. And that kind of broke the fear and broke some of the, emotions surrounding that, so that I was able to live again.
Well, absolutely. And I have one last question for you, Crystal, because everybody's traumatic situation could be emotional, physical, an accident, who knows? And this for you, it was the shooting, but how do you get back to normal? Is there ever a new normal for you personally?
It's not ever going to be the way that it once was before the tragic event occurs or the life-changing, life-altering moment. But we do step into a new normal. And I believe that we are able to thrive and to walk, as your program says, full out in our new normal.
Well, I love that. And you are such a good example of living full out. And we are all about sharing people's stories here, giving voices to these causes. And, let's just hope and pray that no more shootings happen. But I do believe that it takes one voice, two voices, three voices for it to make a difference. But I really appreciate you being on the show. And what shout out would you like to say briefly to those students still dealing with shootings?
I just returned from Parkland, Florida, where I've watched yet another community have to go through what we did. And I just told the students, so many survivors, I said, I have no handbook. I'm no expert. I wish that I could give you the 12 steps of how to walk through tragedy. But unfortunately, that doesn't exist. But I said, I stand here as a physical representation that it's possible to find healing. It's possible to find hope. It's possible to live again, laugh again, hope again. It's possible to find freedom. This does not have to be the thing that defines you.
Well, and you know what,
have
Crystal?
an opportunity of how you'll respond. Yeah,
I love that, and we have to wrap up, but you left it on such a great note because anything is possible. And so I'm so glad that you got that in, and thank you for all your words of inspiration today, and we've appreciated having you on the show.
You bet. Well, Nancy, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the positive voice that you're putting out there in the world, and keep doing what you're doing. And thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Crystal. And when we come back, everybody, we're still taking your calls today about how you can step out of being hesitant and go after life in a big way. That's what Living Full Out is all about. We'll be right back. I'm Nancy Solari. Whenever you're hesitant, I always want you to remember that your life is worth better than playing small. You want to assess what it is that you can bring to the table, how you can make changes, how rather than being hesitant, you can step out there and be a little bit more fearless. Because the thing is, a lot of times the reason why we're hesitant is not something real. It's a negative thought in our mind. And you have the ability to tell that thought to go away. We have to have those lessons so that we can learn and evolve and move forward.
You're listening to Living Full Out. Nancy is here as a guide to show you how to rise above obstacles and savor each moment. If you have a question, call in live at 800-333-0001. That's 800-333-0001. And now, here's Nancy.
All right, here we are, final segment of the show. Today we're talking about when we're hesitant in life, and I don't think there's anybody who hasn't been. I know for me, it happens quite a bit, actually. I almost have to throw myself out the door or toss myself out to do some things just because it's so easy to say, oh, it's dark, it's raining, or I have to call an Uber or a Lyft to get there. There's so many excuses that we can make for why we might hold ourselves back from living full out. But that hesitation, once you can get around the bend, over that hurdle, honestly, it's like going down a slide. You just have to get over that hump. I even remember one time karaokeing, and I knew that my vision was going quickly. It was hard to see any of the lyrics on the screen. And I remember telling quite a few karaoke people, the hosts, could you feed the words to me? I would basically stand by them. They would whisper the words in my ear, and then I would sing. And I was like, gosh, well, this is great. I can still live my passion, karaoke, and I'll just stand right next to the host and they'll feed me the words and it's safe and it's comfortable and I can have a good time. And then I remember one day being at this karaoke venue and I was singing a song that I'd sung before. And here I was on stage, and the karaoke host was kind of down lower from where I was. And I would bend over and let him feed me the words, and then I would stand up a little bit, but I wasn't living full out. And out of nowhere, I kid you not, this lady came up, she slapped her hand down on the stage, and she's like, "You know this song." And it was very forceful, very authoritative. And I was taken back by it. And I stood up, and I just started singing that song. I did know the song. I didn't need to lean over to the karaoke host to feed me the words. I didn't need that crutch. But I was hesitant. I doubted my ability. I thought, oh, what if I make a mistake? What if I make a mistake? Who cares, right? Half of the time people sing karaoke make mistakes anyway. I was really grateful for that person who did that. I don't know where she disappeared to, but she reminded me that I should not be hesitant in life, and nor should you. But we sometimes can be that reminder for another person. You can be that sounding board for someone in your life. Now we're going to go to the phone lines, check in with one of our callers. Hello, welcome to the Living Full Out Show. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely. What's going on today?
Yeah, so I'm in my third year of college, and I'm also working, so going to school and working, trying to pay my bills and school. However, sometimes I feel like it's too much, and I'm tired, and I feel like I want to quit. So I was just wondering if you have any advice, maybe how I can beat or change this feeling.
Well, let me ask you something. When you close your eyes at night and you envision your career, future, what is that? What will you be doing? What do you want to do for a living?
I want to pursue a PhD.
Okay. Do you want to be a therapist, a doctor? What do you want to do?
A lawyer.
You want to be a lawyer? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. You want to be a lawyer. Do you know what kind of lawyer?
I'm still kind of looking.
Still kind of
figuring it out.
Figuring that out. Okay. So where I'm going with this, and you don't have to have all the answers today, but when you can further figure out what kind of attorney you want to be, what type of client you want to serve, now it becomes very real, because all the busyness, all the internships, school, the work to pay for tuition, all of that is to get to the point where you can be living on purpose, where you can help those clients. What if you were to just throw your hands in the air and say, "I quit, I'm too tired," right? Those clients would miss out on you, the one person who is going to guide them through a hard time. So do you see how you can't give up?
Right.
So whenever you're tired, I want you to remember the end game, right? I want you to remember when you live your purpose and you're helping clients, and you can even shut your eyes and see how happy you are. You've graduated, you're getting promoted, you're making great money. That's what you're going for. So when you're tired, remember what you're striving for. And if you do that, the tiredness, you'll still be there. You'll still be tired. You'll still be fatigued, but it won't be as heavy. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
You got it. Go hit the books. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, thank you so much for calling in. And for everybody today who has been listening to this show, I hope you've pinpointed in your life where you're hesitant. I hope you've found ways in which you can overcome those feelings of feeling out of control, hopeless, tired, frustrated, and beyond, because those emotions, negative thoughts, they don't serve you. Always remember that end game in mind. Just like I told the last caller, what is your vision? What are you shooting for? When you know what you're going for, the hesitation may still always be there, kind of underlining everything else, but it won't be as vibrant. You don't want to give your hesitation power. You want to give that power over to yourself, to your passions, to your goals, to your vision. When you do that, I promise you, you'll be living full out in a big way. I want to thank our entire Living Full Out family, Rich, Roger, Riley, Bailey, Kristen, everybody who puts the show on. Most of all, here's to you living full out, and I mean that sincerely. You're not going to hesitate, right? You're going to go for it. I will see you next week. I'm Nancy Solari. This is the Living Full Out Show. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Living Full Out Show with Nancy Solari. To learn more about this program, visit livingfullout.com for the latest episodes. Connect with the Living Full Out community by following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribing to our YouTube channel. If you have an inspirational story you want to share, email us at connect@livingfullout.com. Here's to you, living full out.
Thank you for watching the Living Full Out YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the like button. And if you're interested in the content we provide, feel free to hit the subscribe button. Now, for more inspirational content, click the video on the right to get to know me, Nancy Solari, host of the Living Full Out Show and certified life coach, in more detail. Click the video on the left and you'll be motivated by the Living Full Out radio show and our inspirational guests and callers. Keep in mind, we welcome your comments. If you're empowered, let us know. Feel free to leave a comment. We would enjoy hearing from you. And here's to you, living your life full out.